Welcome to Beyond 3D, a space where we explore new perspectives about consciousness, emotions, neuroscience, energy, healing, and the new paradigms transforming the way we live, work, heal, and create our reality. I am Flavia Sierra, creator of Quantum Neurointegration Mindfulness, and your guide on this journey beyond all ways of thinking and into a more conscious, connected, and empowered way of living. Because the world is changing, and many times the answer we are searching for cannot be found from the same level of awareness where the problem was created. So together, let's explore what exists beyond fear, beyond limitation, and beyond the old 3D paradigms. This is Beyond 3D. It's great to have you here with me for another episode of Beyond 3D. In our last episode, we talked about attention. We explored how much of our lives can pass by without us realizing where our attention actually is, and how learning to reclaim it is one of the most powerful ways to step out of autopilot. And after that conversation, a very natural question comes up. If being present is so important, why is it so difficult? If it seems to be the secret of life, why is it so hard? Because most people don't struggle to understand the idea of presence. We all know, at least in theory, that it would be good to enjoy everyday moments more, pay closer attention to what we're doing, and stop living so focused in the past or the future. The real challenge begins when we try to do it. So it's not when we know it or when we realize it, but when we actually try to do it. You decide to focus on a task, and a few minutes later, your mind is already somewhere else. You plan to rest for a while, but you find yourself replaying a conversation for 3 days ago. You go for a walk to clear your head, and before you realize it, you've spent 20 minutes imagining situations that haven't even happened yet. Even when everything seems fine, the mind keeps moving from one place to another. And I'm laughing because I always think like the mind moving as a squirrel. So when it happens, many people come to what seems like a logical conclusion. They think they lack discipline. They think they need more willpower. They think that if they really wanted to be present, they could simply do it. And guess what? It's not like this. Because when we look more closely at the human experience, we begin to discover that the story is much more complex. Think for a moment about a period in your life when you were deeply worried about something. Maybe it was a financial situation, a health concern, an important decision, or simply a season of uncertainty. In my life, I had all of the above, and maybe some of you that are listening are still going through these all of the above situations. So I really get what that is and what does it look like. You probably, if you live it in the past, remember that even when you try to focus on other things, part of your mind kept returning to whatever was worrying you. And it wasn't because you lacked discipline or you weren't trying so hard enough. Your entire system was simply trying to stay alert. Or if you are going through this situation, that is what's happening still. So when this happens, staying present becomes much more difficult than we realize because there are a lot of things to think about. The mind starts moving ahead of events. It tries to predict situations, find solutions, and prepare for anything that would happen. In theory, that sounds helpful because the goal is to protect you. But when that state lasts for weeks, months, or even years, and again, that's what happened in my life, something begins to change inside and you don't even notice it. You start living with the feeling that there is always something pending, something to fix, something to solve, that there's always something going wrong, even you don't know what, something that needs your attention right now. If you look around, you'll notice that many people's life is lived this way without even realizing it. They answer messages while doing something else. They think about work while trying to rest. They check their phones while talking to someone. They worry about tomorrow while they are still living today. Are you one of these people? Little by little, the body becomes used to operating from a state of alertness, and eventually, that way of living starts to feel normal. As normal that you don't even realize it either. There's another example that I find very interesting because many people have experienced it. Imagine you have been looking forward to a vacation for months. You work, make plans, book a hotel or a trip, and count down the days until you can finally relax. Then the vacation arrives. And something curious happens. Your body is at the beach, in the mountains, on a cruise, or in the destination you've been dreaming about. But even you are there, part of your mind is still reviewing unfinished tasks. You are still thinking about emails, you are still imagining what will happen when you return, you are still mentally solving situations that are not even in front of you, situations that you are imagining. And that's when you begin to realize something really important. The challenge isn't always where you are. Many times, it's our difficulty in fully returning to the present moment. Because if the mind remains trapped in the past or worried about the future, even the most beautiful experiences can pass right in front of us without being fully lived. Something similar happens with rest. Many people are convinced that they rest enough. But are you exactly resting? You have probably had days when you finally have time to relax, but your mind keeps working as if it were still on the job. The body is sitting on the couch, the body is watching a movie, the body is trying to rest, but internally, you are still reviewing lists, conversations, responsibilities, and future scenarios. And going beyond, you still do it while you're sleeping. So all of this shows us something very important. Being present is not only about stopping our activities. It is also about learning how to create a different inner state. This is exactly what I do in my programs, in my methods, with my clients, with myself. Working every day to keep our inner state aligned in such a way that everything that is happening on the outside is happening, created by our inner state consciously. What is interesting is that we often don't realize how much space this takes up in our lives until it disappears. You have probably experienced a situation that worried you for weeks or months. And when it was finally resolved, you felt in an immediate sense of relief. Suddenly, your mind had more space, you slept better, you breathe differently, you feel lighter. The interesting part is that you hadn't changed as a person, right? You are the same person. What changed was the amount of energy you were using to keep that worry active. That is the clue word, energy. And these help us understand something we rarely thought. Being present doesn't depend only on willpower. It also depends on the internal conditions from which you are trying to do it. Think about at night when you barely slept. The next morning, you are still the same person. You have the same knowledge, the same abilities, and the same responsibilities. But everything feels different just because you didn't sleep well. Focusing requires more effort. You become distracted more easily. Tasks that would normally take a few minutes seems to take much longer. And that happens because your body is part of your experience. You are not only a mind that thinks. You are also a body that feels, emotions that move constantly, and energy that influences the way you experience life. For a long time, we were taught to focus almost exclusively on our thoughts. Use your mind, think, and all those words that my father used to say to me. If you want to feel better, change your thoughts. If you want to transform your life, change your thoughts. And while thoughts are important, they are only one very little part of the equation. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying it's a very little part because they are so many. Because if your body is exhausted, if you have been living under tension for too long, or if your nervous system remains in a constant state of alertness, being present becomes much more difficult. You have probably experienced this yourself. There are days when you feel calm, focused, and clear. The same situations seem easier to handle. Conversations flow more naturally, decisions feel simpler. And there are other days, and you are the same you, when everything seems to require more effort. A small situation irritates you, a conversation affects you more than usual, your patience becomes thinner, your attention scatters easily. The outside world may be exactly the same, but your inner experience is completely different. This just recently happened to me. I had a discussion with my mother, and since then, I still haven't become myself again. And this morning, I was feeling really weird, not comfortable, and it's just because I have kept that within me. So to play nice, to be nice with my mom, but I was still with that sensation inside. And of course, the day wasn't just by out of nowhere. The morning, at the moment I woke up, I didn't feel good. And I was like thinking very negative, one of those days. So this brings us to another topic that I would love for us to begin exploring together over the next few episodes. And that's energy. While this word means different things to different people, we have all had experiences that are difficult to explain with words alone. You have walked into a room and immediately felt the atmosphere, right? You've met people whose presence feels calm before they even say a single word. And you've met others who seem to arrive carrying stress, tension, or urgency. What is interesting is that we recognize these experiences naturally. We don't need to analyze them. We simply feel them. And you have probably noticed something similar in yourself. There are days when you arrive at a meeting, a family gathering, or a conversation feeling light, open, and ready to connect. And there are others or other days when you arrive carrying fatigue, stress, or worry. And you don't even know why. The situation may be exactly the same, but the experience is completely different because the energy you bring with you is different. That's why energy is not separate from everyday life. It's present in the way we think, in the way we feel, the way we speak, and the way we relate to the world around us, even if we don't know it or even if we don't notice it. And little by little, we'll explore this topic more deeply because understanding it can completely change the way we see our daily experience. You have also had days when you wake up feeling excited and energized, and other days when you feel heavy before the day even begins. That was me this morning. You have experienced moments when everything seems to flow naturally, and others when every situation feels like hard work. What is interesting is that we often blame those differences only on external circumstances, when there is also an inner dimension that deeply influences the way we perceive reality. And when we live too long in a state of alertness, not only do our thoughts change, our energy changes. The way we interpret situation changes, the way we respond changes, the quality of our presence changes. Even the energy we bring to our relationships, our work, and our decision changes. And in the future, our health changes. That is why simply trying to think differently is often not enough. We need to learn how to create different inner conditions. We need to learn what strengthens our energy and what weakens it. What brings us closer to clarity and what creates more inner noise. What helps us feel present and what keeps us trapped in constant worry. And after hearing all of this, a very natural question may arise. So you might say, okay, now I understand a little more about what's happening. I understand why it's sometimes difficult to stay present. I understand why my mind keeps traveling into the past or the future. I understand why I often end up exhausted even when I haven't done much physical work. But then, what can I do, right? Because knowing doesn't make a difference. Understanding doesn't make a difference. And I love that question because understanding something is valuable. But learning how to relate to the experience differently is what truly creates change. The first thing I would like to tell you is that you don't need to transform your entire life to begin feeling a difference. In fact, some of the deepest changes begin with very small actions repeated consistently. For example, one of the simplest and most powerful practices is creating small pauses throughout the day. I am not talking about stopping for an hour of all your busy day. I am talking about 20 or 30 seconds, not even minutes, seconds. Before answering a message, before entering a meeting, before reacting to a situation, to a person, or to an expression that bothers you, simply pause and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Because how you are feeling right now is the way you are going to respond. It's not what the other people say, what the situation is how you feel. Have you noticed that when you are happy and good and feeling very well, everything seems to be fine? And everything people say don't bother you. And even if people do something to bother you, you don't even care. But on the other side, when you are not feeling that way, whatever happens seems to bother you. So it sounds simple, but something interesting happens when you do that. When you ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Your attention stops being completely absorbed by what is happening outside and returns to you for a moment. And many times that's enough to interrupt an automatic reaction and create space for a conscious response. Another practice that can help tremendously is beginning to notice what strengthens your energy and what drains it. 95% of human beings don't do this because we all know that certain activities, places, and people affect us differently. Some conversations leave us inspired. Just notice this. And some others leave us exhausted. Some activities bring clarity and others create even more mental noise. We all have lived these situations. Simply observing those differences is a powerful way to develop awareness because you cannot change what you haven't learned to notice. It is very important to start noticing things. And there's a third idea that I personally find very valuable. Remember that you do not have to solve your entire life today. It sounds simple, but many times the nervous system stays activated because it's trying to solve everything that happened yesterday, everything happening today, and everything that could happen tomorrow all at the same time. This is too much. And that's a tremendous burden for any human being. And believe me, I was one of those. And once in a while, I'm still one of those. The truth is that life only happens one way. One moment at a time, one conversation at a time, one decision at a time, one breath at a time. And when you begin returning again and again to that simplicity, something inside starts to relax. Maybe present isn't about controlling everything happening or every thought or forcing the mind to become completely quiet. That's not presence. Presence begins every time you remember to return to the present moment, to return to your breath, to return to your body, to return to yourself. Because every time you pause, your nervous system receives a message. Every time you slow down for a few seconds, your body receives a message. Every time you consciously return to the present moment, your energy receives a message. And that message is simple. I am here, I am present, and in this moment, in this right moment, I am okay. I hope this conversation stays with you over the coming days and invites you to notice something different in your own experience. Because the moment you start noticing it and you see what difference it makes in your life, you will start practicing and choosing how do you want to feel. You will start realizing what you can do different in order to feel the way you want to feel. Notice how often your mind travels to the past or to the future. Notice how your body feels when you are truly present. Notice what happens to your energy when you slow down for a moment and return to the here and now. Thank you for joining me once again on Beyond 3D. I hope you enjoyed this episode, but even more than that, I hope it leaves you with something meaningful to carry with you throughout the week. Allow whatever resonated with you to continue working within you over the next few days. Sometimes a single idea is enough to help us see life from a completely different perspective. I am sending you a big hug, and I wish you a week filled with more presence, more clarity, and more moments to reconnect with yourself. And until then, I'll see you at our next coffee, tea, matcha, or glass of wine together. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Take a moment today to reflect on what resonated with you, and maybe ask yourself, what would change in my life if I started seeing reality from a different level of consciousness? I am Flavia Sierra, and this is Beyond 3D. Until next time.